First thing, what is an orgasm? Right? Like, that's important. I like to start it off with a bit of a joke. It is a glad finale. Yeah, thank you, thank you. I'll be here all weekend. But really, orgasm comes from the Greek word orgasmos, which means excitement and swelling, which is really interesting because the orgasm is actually, as I mentioned, the finale to the excitement and swelling. It's what actually triggers the body to go out of the excitement and swelling. Um, in most cases, we'll be talking about multiples as well. Uh, so, orgasm is a climax of sexual excitement. That's a key climax. It's the pinnacle in most cases. Even in the dictionary definition, it is considered the pinnacle, the point, the climax, the tippy top from which it begins to fall. And I think that that particular bit of the definition is outdated based on what we've learned about orgasms in the past 50 years or so. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today, because one of the challenges that we have as humans is that many of us are still being taught sex ed from books that are, 30, 40, or 50 years old. And we're not learning all of the possibilities with orgasm. Like, for example, here at this event, and let me know if you're excited about this, one of the things that we're going to be talking about in 2 different classes is the confluence of hypnosis and orgasm, right? So just using the mind to create orgasmic pleasure. So I think it's important that we understand that orgasm is not simply the tip of something. Going through the rest of that definition, a climax of sexual excitement characterized by feelings of pleasure centered in the genitals and in men experienced as an accompaniment to ejaculation. Super, super interesting, right? Accompaniment to ejaculation. Like, that's pretty key. And that's how a lot of people experience orgasm, especially people with penises. Okay. Orgasm for people with penises is often an accompaniment to ejaculation, and they often don't see it any other way, right? So, one of the challenges that we have is that people with penises often think, when I orgasm, I ejaculate. Or the other way around, when I ejaculate, I orgasm. And neither of those things are actually entirely true, or they're not necessarily true. And that's something that we really want to understand and focus in on. So let's break this down. A climax of sexual excitement, which is usually defined as like the most intense, the most exciting, or most important part of something, a culmination or an apex, right? Suggesting the climax, which is great if that's what you want and that's how it goes for you, but it doesn't actually cover the full orgasmic experience or multiples or whatever. Characterized by feelings of pleasure centered in the genitals. As I mentioned before, not all orgasms are specifically centered in the genitals. And let me be clear, people have said to me, well, it's just not possible to have an orgasm from breast stimulation, or it's not possible to have an orgasm from mental stimulation alone. Au contraire, mon frère. In fact, scientists have studied this stuff, and they have proven that paraplegics can have orgasms centered on parts of their body that no longer exist as far as feeling goes. And it's all in the brain without even being touched. Also, Rain DeGray last night was talking about having experiences of intense pleasure, orgasmic pleasure, from having her hip licked, from watching some people play, from using a dildo on someone else, right? So orgasm has really come a long way as far as what we can consider an orgasm. And this is important because when I'm talking to you about orgasm, I want you to understand what I mean by it, right? So even under this definition, even an orgasm from the anus would not qualify because genitals are a person or animal's external organs of reproduction. So even the butthole, again, talked about very nicely last night by Rain DeGray, is left out of the game. And in men experienced as an accompaniment to ejaculation. Okay, so let's take out the in men, right? But even so, some men ejaculate, some don't. Some non-men ejaculate, some don't. Sometimes those that ejaculate with orgasms don't. Sometimes those that ejaculate do so without full orgasm. Okay, so I guess the point that I'm making is that the textbook definition of orgasm is going to give us an inaccurate picture of what orgasm is. So fuck me with a chainsaw, right? Like, don't make it easy.